So I'm going to welcome Mary. She will walk us through QA Touch in action, how Mary brings order, speed, and confidence to every test cycle. Her talk promise practical strategies for applying QA Touch to streamline and strengthen your testing process. Let's welcome Mary.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Mary Enwezor, and I am glad to be here today at the Global Testers Summit. First, a big thank you to QA Touch for creating this platform for us to be able to learn from each other, right? And as I earlier said, my name is Mary Enwezor, and I have been working in the QA industry, right? In the QA sector across different industries like the fintech, banking, industry, and so on. So I actually do spend my days testing core fintech platforms, web APIs, web apps, APIs, and collaborating with developers, right, to make sure that what goes live actually works for real users. And if I'm being honest, QA can get chaotic, right? So raise your hand if you've ever managed test cases in Excel. Yes, I've actually been there too. Hundreds of test cases scattered across tabs, updates lost, confusion everywhere. This was my life before QA Touch. Now, today, I want to share how QA Touch helped me go from that chaos to a workflow that feels structured, faster, and most importantly, reliable. So, we want to look at the real problem now. Let me paint a picture, right? So, at one of my past projects, we were preparing a major release with over 200 regression test cases. Like everything was stored in spreadsheets, right? We had like three testers updating the same file. And by the end of each day, someone's changes were actually missing. Stakeholders kept asking for updates, and we were manually writing log reports just to keep them informed. Now, it wasn't just frustrating, it slowed us down, created errors, and honestly made QA look more like a bottleneck, right? It looked more like a bottleneck in the project. So that's when I discovered QA Touch. Now, at first, I actually did think, oh, it's just another tool, right? But what I learned is that QA Touch isn't just about storing test cases, right? It changes the way you work entirely. So, how I use QA Touch. Now, how do I use QA Touch in my everyday testing? Well, the first point that we can see on the screen is that I use it for organizing my test cases. So, at an organization that I worked at, I had to manage test cases across multiple modules. Now, instead of creating separate spreadsheets, I I had built structured test suites in QA Touch, one for login, one for creating one for transactions, and one for reporting. Then suddenly my work was organized and easy to reuse. Then I use QA Touch for execution tracking. So actually, during one of the sprints at Tech Alivation, we had a tight deadline. So what I did was that I made use of QA Touch to mark results as I executed them, whether they passed, whether it failed, whether there was a blocker, right? Regardless of the status, I use QA Touch to mark the results. So by the end of the day, my project manager, could log in and see progress without pinging me 10 times, right? And then another way that I use QA Touch, one thing that I use QA Touch for, right, is for I use it for collaborating, right? So sometimes, right, when you're working in a team, there can be gap in communication. So with QA Touch, my developers could, you know exactly what test cases failed instead of me writing long defect reports. They had visibility in real time. And another thing that I use QA Touch for is the reusability. Now, regression is always a time crunch. QA Touch actually lets me reuse cases, right, across projects without rewriting them. So that actually saved me lots of hours. And finally, how I use QA Touch, I use QA Touch for reporting, as we can see. So basically, at the end of testing, I could just generate a clean report in seconds. So I used to spend hours formatting reports in, you know, Word doc. But then with QA Touch, that's handled, which actually freed up most of my time for actual testing. So we'll be moving on to the next slide, which is the impact. So you might actually ask, like, you might be wondering, what's the impact of all of this that I'm saying, right? So first thing is order. So no more, digging through scattered files. Like everything was in one place, right? So QA Touch actually did bring order to my testing cycle as a whole, right? Then also, another thing is for speed, right? That's the next point. So I actually spend less time on admin tasks, right? And more time testing. Then finally, what we have here is QA Touch brought confidence. So, and basically, this is like my biggest win, right? For me. So, the that's my stakeholders no longer saw QA as the delay, right? Rather, they saw QA as transparent and reliable. So, let me ask, how many of you have ever worked on a release where, the business team asks, "Are we ready?" And, you hesitated before answering? Well, I've been there. And QA Touch actually helped me, turn that hesitation into clear, confident answers backed by data. Now, the next slide, right, is basically lessons learned and practical tips. So I would say a few lessons that I've learned whilst using QA Touch would be, firstly, start small, right? So just pick one project to try QA Touch. Don't overwhelm yourself, right? And the next thing we have on the list is that we name things clearly. So a good naming convention will save future you a lot of stress. Trust me. And third thing we have on this list is focus on value, not volume. Right? So it's not just about writing thousands of test cases. It's about writing meaningful ones. Then make it visible. So use QA touch, um use QA touch reports early, right? And often. Don't just wait till the end of the sprint. You can use it like mid sprint, right? So visibility builds respect for QA. And then to wrap it up, QA Touch has become more than just a tool for me. It's part of how I bring order, speed, and confidence to testing. Now, if you take anything away from this, right, let it be. I just want you to know that tools like QA Touch are powerful, but then the real magic happens when you use them consistently and, you know, build habits around them. And that's how you move from chaos to clarity. So thank you so much for listening. A huge thank you once again to QA Touch for creating this platform. And if you'd like to connect or continue this conversation, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn at Mercy and Enwezor. Wishing you all a successful test cycle. Happy testing. Bye.